Hi, it's time for another vintage unboxing video. And today I have something out of my personal collection. This is out of my office. It's what we refer to as the museum. And what we have here today is a NuTone, says style WK100, and it's one wiring kit, and it's for a NuTone door chime. According to the label, it includes a plug-in transformer, colored wire, a push button, some friction tape, and some staples. And if you look carefully down here on the label, you'll see that it says manufactured by NuTone Incorporated, Cincinnati to Ohio, and it says made in USA. So let's go ahead and see what NuTone sold back in the day for a wiring installation kit for a NuTone door chime. Go ahead and open it up here. Let's prop it up a little bit so it'll be easier to see. Open it up, and what we have is inside the lid we have a illustrated label. It says NuTone Chime wiring kit. Here's what kit contains. Not unlike today when you buy something and the first thing you find in the booklet is what's in the box. That's what they call it nowadays, I think. So what we have here is we have a 101 PT plug-in transformer, 16 volts. 2, 3 color bell wire, a total of 115 feet. That's pretty impressive. We have a PB3 NuTone glow-in-the-dark push button. 4, we have a box of 40 insulated wire staples. And 5, a 6-foot roll of quality friction tape. None of that economy or budget friction tape, only the highest quality stuff for NuTone. Down here it says, please read instructions included in this package, and all of this together costs a whopping $3.95. What a bargain. I don't think you could buy a roll of wire today for $3.95, so that's pretty good. So let's go ahead and look at what we actually have in the box. So I guess it would only be right to take out the NuTone brand items first, because it looks like we have products from several different manufacturers in here. So here we have our NuTone plug-in chime transformer. It's a catalog number 101 PT. It says it's 16 volts for a 115 volt line, 50 to 60 cycle. U.S. and foreign patents pending, manufactured by NuTone Incorporated, 3rd and Eggelston Avenue, Cincinnati to Ohio, USA. And that's a clue as to when this was most likely manufactured, because there is no date on anything. I've already looked. So we'll put that there. We also have our NuTone model PB3 push button. It says modern. It's got the old school NuTone logo here. And it says on this side of the box, made by the makers of NuTone door chimes, NuTone Incorporated USA. Luminous, durable, and beautiful. What more could you actually want of a doorbell push button? That's pretty outstanding. And then we have some wire. We have 2 boxes here, and this is Corico, I guess, annunciator wire. When was the last time anybody called it annunciator wire? And then in parentheses underneath it says bell wire, because we all know what that is. So 1/4 pound, highest quality, Cornish Wire Company, New York, New York. And on the end, this one says number 20. And it's got a little window here on the other end, and this is red wire, because it says here on the label 3 colors. So we have, it actually says here in the drawing we have red, black, and green. So here's our red wire, and this one, this is a number, it says number 2 on it, must be the model number. And here's a window on this end, and it's green wire. And then here we have another box. It's a little bit different of a box. It just says annunciator wire 1/4 pound. It doesn't have actually the manufacturer's name on it, but I would guess it's probably the same. Maybe like a lot of manufacturers, they decided to save some costs and not print the fancy boxes anymore, and they were still using up the early boxes. But again, we have a window here, and we can see we have black wire. And here we have a little box of insulated staples. Eagle nail it, drive in like a nail. And here we have a little drawing of someone pounding in a staple. And on this end, it's Eagle Electric Manufacturing Company Incorporated in Long Island City, New York. And it looks like it's catalog number 221, and it probably contains 40 staples. And finally, we have some Dryden double wear friction tape from the Dryden Rubber Company in Chicago. Non-raveling, extra adhesive. Let's see if it's really extra adhesive after this many years. So let's go ahead and put our box aside and take a look at what each thing is. So I guess we should really start with our transformer, because that's sort of the most important bit of the whole kit. So let's go ahead and see what NuTone on 3rd and Eggelston Avenue made back in the day. So it's a nice, the box is a little tattered, but it's not too terribly bad. It is nicely packaged with this fold over piece, and inside we've got the transformer and some instructions. So what we have here is, this is one of the few and only plug-in NuTone transformers I've ever seen. I've seen a couple modern ones, but I've never seen a vintage one before this. And basically what we have here is, it's an all steel construction. It's sort of finished in this dark, what I would call crayon brown color, and stamped in the end of the one cover it says 16 volt Chime transformer. Capacity, it's 10 VA. Not 10 watts, but 10 VA, so they even used VA back in the day. It says NuTone Incorporated, made in USL, and it's UL listed, which is important. Was then, is now. And stamped down here on the bottom, it says Catalog 101 PT, so we know what it is for certain. And on this side, we have our plug-in prongs here. Go in the wall outlet. It's got a support bracket for a screw here, so it screws into the plate screw hole to hold it in so it doesn't tip and fall out. And down here are our 16 volt output terminals here. It says 16V right here, and it's got two arrows pointing down to these two little screws right here. So it's a pretty comprehensive little unit. 10 VA. They still make 16 volt 10 VA transformers. They did forever, it seems like. It's sort of the default smallest size doorbell transformer you would buy. This would typically be used for a standard 2-note door chime, not for one of the larger long tube type chimes. And then fortunately here we actually have the original instructions. And these are how to install your NuTone plug-in transformer. So we have this nice graphic here, how to install your NuTone plug-in in quotes transformer. It's form number 49-6261. And over here we have terminal board on a 2-note door NuTone chime. And we have our standard layout where we have front, trans, and rear. And then we've got front door button, rear door button, and it shows how it wires back to the transformer. And here we see how the transformer plugs into your electrical outlet on the wall. We have a twin outlet, 115 volts, 50 to 60 cycles. And none of this grounded nonsense. It's just a standard two slot wall outlet. And down here we have written instructions. It looks like somebody typed it on a typewriter, but I'm sure that's just the font that they used back in those days. And it takes you through steps 1 through 4 on how to wire it up. It says here as a note at the end, if the above connections have been properly made, Chime will sound 2 notes on the front door, 1 note for rear. If the transformer is used in an apartment, wires to Chime and push buttons can be concealed by running it along the baseboards and around door frames, etc. And we have NuTone Incorporated, Cincinnati, number 2, Ohio, USA. Next up we have our annunciator wire. So we have a 1/4 pound, each box contains a 1/4 pound, which I don't think they sell wire by weight anymore, at least not that I'm familiar with. If we open it up, we've got a nicely spooled up, somewhat stuck together coil of wire. And if we find an end here, we can see this is actually fairly nice wire. I would say, I guess it would be fair enough to strip it back just a little bit. We don't want to do a lot, but just to see what we've got here. So we've got a solid wire, solid conductor with a plastic, or perhaps, I don't think it's a vinyl coating. It's not a cloth coating. It's some kind of synthetic material, so it's probably vinyl coated, and it's rather shiny, and it's like all solid conductor wire, it's fairly stiff. And this you would use to run one of the 3 conductors you need that are outlined in the instructions to wire up your new NuTone door chime. So there we have our black wire, and here we have our red wire. And it's easy to tell that these all came from the same company, because 1, that would make sense, and 2, the way the spools are wound and coiled up, they're all very similar in the way they're made. They all have a certain amount of shininess to them, which is kind of nice, especially I guess if you were living in an apartment and you were going to nail these around your window and door frames and along your baseboards, you would want it to look reasonably nice. I'm pretty sure the reason they gave you 3 different colors was that it would make hooking things up easier, especially if this was for the novice installer, which I think back in those days almost everyone would qualify as, and it would be harder to get it mixed up when you're trying to connect it up. So we've got our 3 spools of wire. Let's put those off over here. And since we're installing at this time, the next thing we should look at are our Eagle Nail-It staples. And if you've done any kind of low voltage surface mount wiring in your home, these will look familiar. These are actually better than average, the ones I see today. They're little hammer driven staples, and the thing that's kind of unique about these is that it's got one longer leg than the other side, and the longer leg is got this little bent portion right here, which is where you would hit it with the hammer to drive it, to get it started. So you would drive that side in first, and it would stick in the wood, and then you could run the wires and then drive it down the rest of the way. So that would make installation a little bit easier. And they're in sort of an ivory color, and maybe they were always ivory, or maybe they were white and they've turned ivory because they're old. And then it's got the little folded cardboard insulator across the staple to protect the insulation of the wires. So I would say that there's probably roughly 40 of those in there. These were made by the, close that up. These were made by the Eagle Electric Manufacturing Company, a company that's still in business today. I believe they started in the late 1800s, and they've been bought and sold many times, but it's still a name. If you go look in your local home improvement store, you'll find products made by Eagle today. So they've held out. And then we have our Dryden double wear friction tape. And friction tape is sort of the predecessor to vinyl electrical tape. Friction tape is still used today. If we take this out, it's wrapped up in cellophane. You can tell it's cellophane by the way it crackles. And if we sort of unwrap it a little bit, it's I don't think it's double wear anymore. I have a feeling that it's probably dried out to the point that it's one. Oh, no, it unpeels still. So friction tape it's not sticky anymore. It's all dried out. But friction tape is a cloth tape. It's a woven cloth tape, much like when you buy bandages that you buy at the drugstore to wrap around when you slice your finger open with a utility knife. You need to wrap it in gauze. It's kind of like that. It's a woven cloth tape, and then it had some kind of adhesive put on it. And actually the thing about it is it actually, because it's woven cloth, it's actually a little bit stretchy, so you can pull it and stretch it as you wrap it around your connection to insulate it. But this is turned into one big giant hard roll now. So not really very useful in today's world, although friction tape is still used in some electrical work. It has different applications than using vinyl tape. And the thing about The thing about friction tape is that when you wrap it around connections and you put it inside an electrical box and you leave it there for 30 or 40 years, it turns into this. It's this hard, solid mass of woven cloth with adhesive on it, and it's not easy to get off. So it's a good insulator. If any of you have ever done any kind of electrical work, you probably have seen vinyl electrical tape that unwraps itself, or the adhesive dries out and then it comes undone. So this still has a place in today's world. And then finally we have the NuTone modern push button PB3. PB3 is a number that NuTone used for many years. And if we kind of open this carefully so we don't tear the box, of course it's wrapped up in tissue paper as things used to be. And we've got a couple of mounting screws. And if we unwrap it, oh, that's pretty jazzy. We've got this black base with a chrome trim and a push button here. We've got two screw terminals on the back for our probably red and green wire, or maybe red and black wire. And it says that it lights up. It says it is luminous. So, I don't know. I suppose it probably is. It doesn't look like it was meant to be taken apart, so I don't think I will. Or maybe we can. Maybe we can pop the little chrome piece off. I imagine that this is metal, and it's actually stamped NuTone here on the side. And these probably came in a variety of different finishes, maybe chrome and brass or gold. It doesn't seem as if the button part wants to come out, and I don't want to break it, but only the center part. It's a nice design. Let's put this back on. It's easier to see. You've got this nice tapered design here, and then the center part moves and the little pointy ends are fixed. So it's a pretty nice, stylish sort of button. Let's see if we can maybe light it up a little bit and see how luminous it actually is. So I had a quick play around with the button off camera. I hooked it up to a power supply to see if it would light, and it didn't. And then I checked it, and there's no resistance across the terminals as if there would be a bulb in it, which I thought was kind of odd. And since this is a new and unused kit, it seems odd to me that if it had a bulb in it, it would not work. And then apparently there is no bulb in it. So then I was thinking about it, and it says luminous, and I got an idea, and I held it up to my light that I use, my LED light I use when I shoot the videos, and I'm going to go ahead and turn, I have all the other shop lights off now. I'm going to turn off this light and watch what happens. And if you look really carefully, it's really kind of hard to see, but it's actually, that's my finger moving back and forth, it actually glows in the dark. And that must be the luminous part of it. See if I can hold it up here. It's a little hard because we've got a little residual light coming in from the windows outside. They're opaque, but if I cupped my hands around it and looked, and it actually glows. It's sort of got a bluish glow to it, which is kind of unusual. So it must be, see, I have my hands around it now. You probably can't see anything at all. So I'm blocking out all the light, and I can actually see the button glowing. So it has some sort of luminous quality to the plastic of the button. And I think a glow-in-the-dark button is pretty cool. I was not aware of any other button, NuTone button I've ever seen that actually glows in the dark. So I think that's pretty terrific. Let's go ahead and put it back in its box where it's been for ages. We'll stuff the tissue paper back in and close it up. So there you have it. It's a NuTone model or style WK100 NuTone Chime wiring kit. And it's a pretty comprehensive kit. It would be everything that you would need today to install a NuTone door chime if you didn't have one. The real question here is, when is this from? When was it made? Because there is no date on anything, so we have to be a little bit of a detective to kind of reason out when it might have been. Most of this is very generic. The installation or annunciator wire, was made by a company that was in business for a really long time, and there's no dates on it, and I couldn't find any information about that. The Eagle electrical manufacturing company, they're still in business, and surprisingly enough, there's not a lot of information about insulated staples. The Drayden company, they were a company in Chicago that made a lot of different things, had to do with the rubber business, and friction tape fits into that. Actually, the fellow who started the company, Mr. Drayden, he actually worked for Harvey Firestone selling tires in the early days of rubber tires, and then he branched out on his own and made the Drayden, or the Drayden rubber company in Chicago. They also used to make rubber covers for horseshoes or something like that. So I don't know a lot about that, but that seemed kind of interesting. Maybe it was important back in the day. So the best clue that we have about when the kit would have been made probably is from the transformer box. It says here, manufactured by NuTone Incorporated, 3rd and Eggelston Avenue, Cincinnati 2, Ohio, USA. The number 2 is a city postal code. Those types of single-digit city postal codes, it looks like they began to be used sometime around 1943. And it seems that it was in a response to us being in World War II and the shortage of experienced mail carriers. So cities had postal codes applied to them, so it's easier to sort mail by inexperienced people. So we know that NuTone was located at 3rd and Eggelston Avenue between 1940 and 1948. And in 1949, they moved to Madison and Red Banks Road, and they were there until the mid-2000s. This would have had to be made sometime between 1940 and 1948. However, NuTone was involved in wartime production during World War II, and that would be between 1941 and 1945. So I don't think that this would be pre-war. I think this would be post-war. Also, if you look at the NuTone logo, the type of name they're using here, this is more of a late 40s style. It would make sense that this would be probably, I'm guessing it's 1949. The thing that leads me to believe that is, here we have, NuTone was always very practical about numbering things, and here we have on the instructions, we have form number 49-6261. I have no idea what the 6261 meant, but 1949 I think would mean it was written and created in 1949, and that would kind of make sense, even though they were on the verge of moving to their new location, and they probably had these around and they were just using up boxes, just like the wire company used up fancier boxes and plainer boxes. So I think this is probably from the late 1940s or the early 1950s, because I'm sure they made this for a number of years. Also, the illustration on the box sort of has that late 40s, early 50s kind of look to it. I'm going to date this as late 40s or early 50s. I hope you found this video to be interesting. I think it's interesting that this type of product as a kit was something that NuTone sold. This was still in the earlier days of getting people to be familiar with the idea of having a door chime as opposed to a door knocker or a door buzzer. And I think the idea or the concept behind this type of kit was probably very similar as to what you would find in a home improvement store today. People would look at the NuTone door chimes at their local supplier or wherever you would buy door chimes in the 1940s and 1950s. I don't know exactly where that would have been exactly, but it must have been local. Maybe it was the local lumber yard or something like that. And so a couple might go and look at a door chime and they would really like it and think that was a really good idea, but then it comes down to how do we install it? We don't know anything about doing something like that. We don't know about wiring and transformers and push buttons and they would look at each other and shake their heads and walk out and not buy it. So I think this was probably NuTone's attempt at making it more consumer friendly and something that the average person would consider installing themselves, because you could buy a kit for $3.95. It gave you everything you needed. It encourages you to run the wires and conceal them around baseboards and door frames and so forth, which I guess in those days, if you didn't have a doorbell at all, that would be fine to do. And you could have a NuTone door chime in your house, and that would be a really special and upscale thing to do. So instead of somebody just knocking on your door, especially I guess if you lived in an apartment. So that's interesting. I don't think they would let you do that in apartments nowadays. Anyway, it's a sort of blast to the past of the way things used to be done. And in the early days of NuTone, when they were still forging ahead with their Chime business before they created all of their other products, and they were probably still a reasonably small company at that time. But I know the 3rd and Eggelston Avenue facility was much bigger than where they moved from. And their original location, as I understand it, they only had 3 or 4 people that worked there. So it was a pretty small little company at that time. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up on YouTube, because that always helps. If you like our videos, there'll be a banner right here. You can click on the bell on our YouTube homepage and put in your email address and subscribe to our channel, and when we post new videos you'll get a notification. That's all for today. See you on the next video.